And we are on. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to Burnin Rubber, the socially distanced edition for tonight, May 22nd, 2020. My name is Sterling Siemens. I'm joined by my regular panel of co-hosts, Justin Palmer and Hal Estep. And, gentlemen, this is the first edition of the show. Finally, we get to talk about some real racing and some other stuff that happened over the weekend. And I know Denny Hamlin's awfully excited, aren't you, Denny? Yes, you are. You look like that mask makes you look like a demented Hannibal Lecter. But how about it? Let's carry on.
Cursed.
First image right there.
Stuff to give people nightmares. It's somewhat funny and also a little terrifying. Let's move on,
My
though.
nightmares.
Let's talk about the races that happened. There were 3 different races, and I'll start with the order in which they happened. We'll start on Sunday. The Real Heroes 400, NASCAR's triumphant return to racing. At least that was the intended goal. And frankly, I think it's safe to say it went really well. Or at least the start wasn't so great. Ricky Stenhouse crashed out on the first lap. But I understand there were some bets going on as to whether or not a crash would happen on the first lap, but it did. And Jimmy Johnson, he looked great, almost won the first stage, and then crashed out trying to lap Chris Buescher on the last lap of stage 1. And from there, Kevin Harvick basically ran away with this race. Harvick goes on to win the first race back for the NASCAR Cup Series and NASCAR in general. That was this past Sunday at Darlington. He led 159 of the race's 293 laps at Darlington Raceway in South Carolina. I guess we'll break down each race one by one and start with that. I'll start with Justin Palmer on talking about the Real Heroes 400. Looking at it from a perspective of sport-wide, just across NASCAR, could this return have gone any better for them?
I think it could have. I mean, it wasn't the home run and that this, like, people were saying it was going to be. Like, it wasn't in 1979. It wasn't the perfect storm, but it was a solid single. It was a solid single, maybe even a double. Oh, it was a good race. There was a good amount of crashes, a good amount of drama to go around. But it was just a solid race where NASCAR's package proved effective at Darlington. That is something you rarely say. Hey, now, the reason why I say it's a single and double is because as I'm looking at it retrospectively compared to the rest of the races that happened this weekend, but it was a very good return for NASCAR. And let's be honest, we all knew those guys were not making it a single lap around on Darlington. And you get these guys cooped up for 70 days without actual racing. And these guys are going to, without any practice time, these guys are going to be aggressive from the get-go. And Ricky Stenhouse proved to be a little too aggressive. Not sure where I've seen that before. But
yeah, overall,
it was just a solid single of a race. There was a little bit of heat from Alex Bowman and the Hendrick group. Obviously, Byron and Johnson had their issues, but it was just a solid return to get NASCAR back on track.
Nice analysis. Hal Estep, your take, from your perspective on NASCAR's return, could it have been any better, or just what are your overall thoughts on it?
Well, I'll tell you what, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is in mid-season form. After seeing it was completely on brand what happened in the first lap, you just kind of were going, who's going to be the first one? There's got to be some rust out here because these guys haven't even practiced at Darlington. They weren't able to qualify at Darlington. Someone's going to be the first one, and it was exactly who you'd expect. I mean, that's just how it's been. But seeing Jimmy Johnson running in the first stage at the top of the pack, that was a surprise, I think we could say, because we've seen the drop-off in his performance, And you're kind of going, he's got going here. He's gonna win this stage, and then he didn't, and you're kind of reminded that this is why there's a drop off. So it was kind of what you expected came a little bit, and that includes Kevin Harvick running away with it. But I got to point out that for as bad of a day for those two guys, William Byron and Jimmy Johnson and Hendrick, Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott had equally good days. Elliott finishing fourth and Bowman in second. I think that's got to be a good sign going forward for Hendrick. Of course, we'll talk about what else happened to Hendrick at Darlington later on.
Yes, it's going to be quite the conversation as we get into the second race. But overall, just in my opinion, this first race, it's kind of going with what Justin said. I think NASCAR, they didn't really market this race much at all, honestly. If you were to look at it just from TV, they didn't really promote it that much. Maybe because Darlington is more of it's not the biggest market, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe they didn't want to get fans' hopes up in case the race was a giant disappointment. But honestly, it went really well. The race overall was really, really good, in my opinion. And the efforts that NASCAR took, actually, we'll get into more of that after we recap all these other events. So I'll save that topic after we've gone through all the three events. We go down to the second race of this week, the Toyota 500. That's 500 kilometers at Darlington. It was scheduled for 228 laps. It ended up being cut 20 laps short because of rain. And this guy behind me, Denny Hamlin, won with that creepy mask, which, by the way, in case any viewers or listeners are wondering, yes, you actually can buy it online for under $20. I looked it up online. Basically, yeah, there's that. Anyway.
This is not sponsored, by the way. Not sponsored. Gotta make that clear.
Not sponsored whatsoever. But what I do want to make clear is there was a lot of drama at the end of the race. Denny Hamlin won it, but no one really cares about that. What everyone was talking about was Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott. The wreck at the end and how big this could be for NASCAR. There were people who were watching that race and thinking, this is exactly what NASCAR needs. Well, we'll probably get into more of that later because I do have that separated on our agenda. But Wednesday night's race, it was an interesting show. We'll say that much because you had a lot of guys up at the front. You had Denny Hamlin, who led he only led 12 laps, but it was still a sizable chunk. You had Kevin Harvick up near the front, who had won the previous race. You had Brad Keselowski. Eric Jones led late in the going. But it was Clint Boyer who actually held pretty strong up at the front for most of the night. He led the most laps during that race with 71, but he faded back to finish in 22nd after, I think it was a cut tire. Yeah, a tire issue. And Chase Elliott, obviously, he had a car that could win at the end of the race. He led 28 laps, but then he got wrecked by Kyle Busch, and that put him down to 38th out of 39 cars. So I guess one of the things to really look at is, and I'll start with Justin again on this, I do want to focus on, this was NASCAR's first midweek race, at least on the Cup side. They've done it with trucks before. And this was the first scheduled midweek race for Cup. They did a Cup Series race on a Tuesday at Michigan in 2007, but that's only because the race Sunday and Monday had been rained out. So
in 2011, Atlanta, if I recall correctly, because of a hurricane. Yeah. And that was Jeff Gordon's 85th win.
Yep. But your thoughts on NASCAR's midweek racing debut, good or bad, and why?
Whenever we do a midweek race in general, at night, it seems like all chaos breaks loose. It was full moon, no full moon. And these drivers are absolutely insane. But overall, this was just a fun race to watch. It was a very fast, and it's a great race for the package. By the way, with the nighttime and the core attempts, and it made for some great racing all across the board. We even had a couple of leads, changes here and there. There were different guys who were coming up and then coming down all night long and then coming back up. I thought for sure Harvick was going to be the one to get to him at the end, but Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin both had fast cars. And then top of all that, you had the strategy of the rain coming. We knew it was a pain all Tuesday, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And Wednesday, we didn't even think we were going to have this race on Wednesday night. We thought we were going to have to wait until Thursday to get this race in. So the fact that we got 20 laps to go, I cannot complain about the rain coming because we knew that was going to be the end of the race. And we knew that I think we can all assume, because as we kind of knew it was coming, the rain was in the area. We all knew it. And we knew that restart was going to be the final just one of the day. A vortex theory or no vortex theory, whoever was going to be in first, when the caution came out, that was going to be your winner. And those guys drove like it. And it definitely got some interesting results. I'll say that much before we dive into that conversation deeper. But Denny Hamlin with his second victory of the year. The guy has had 2 wins where nobody has cared about him winning. I mean, this is the second race this season. I don't think you could say that about many other races this year. But at this point, to Hamlin, and this has to be the year. This has to be the year. I don't care about how many Daytona 500 victories. I don't care if you won Darlington this year, or even if it was a 500 kilometer instead of the 500 in September. You have to win now. You have to go out and win that title this year. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. It is time. It is time. And for you to go out there and finally get the title and stop being in the shadows of everyone. And I would continue, but I'll probably get a 6-inch pizza tape stuck to my grill. So I'll pass it on over to Hal.
I'll tell you what. Anytime I look at my phone while I'm doing something in my household during the race and I see Ty Dillon's in the top 5, I'm thinking something crazy is going on in this race. There's something interesting going on. Ty Dillon led 8 laps. That is a sentence I didn't expect to say this week.
Well,
quite.
I mean,
yeah.
I did.
You did.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of given, but I mean, he did start in the front row, but it's nice to see that home day car up there. I had to do it. I had to.
That car's got to appear more.
I'd be up for watching more of that. But Hal, continue. You were saying?
But when you add in that a lot of guys led and it was a really competitive race, along with that touch of controversy, I think that controversy brings eyes. People love to see it. No matter what they tell you, controversy creates cash. So I think when Kyle Busch spun Chase Elliott, that got a lot of attention. And quite frankly, I think that is good for the sport as a whole. It's what was missing from what the return on Sunday. There wasn't a huge controversy in that race. This one, we got some conflict. And they can't really resolve it, with the fisticuffs, which is probably for the best. I think Chase Elliott is probably too nice of a guy to pull that too. But it does show that Kyle Busch still has that little bit of grit to him that he can pull out whenever he wants. And I think that's going to be what the storyline going forward is, that he's once again a little bit of the villain role. Even though this time I really believe his case, I think that's going to be a big story moving forward the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a big story for sure. And we're going to break that down in the next segment of the show. As for the midweek debut for NASCAR, I thought, considering the race that unfolded, you couldn't have asked for much better. The only thing that would have made it better is if this did not happen during a pandemic and the stands were full, because those fans were going to be loving what they saw. And whose side they would be on, because let's be honest, Chase Elliott's got a big fan base, and Kyle's fan base is, well, let's just say
8-year-olds high on M&Ms. 8-year-olds high on M&Ms and sugar.
I mean, Kyle's one of the more popular drivers in the sport, though. Like, even though Chase Elliott was the most popular last year, I think second most popular was Kyle Busch. So, I mean, hey, he's still popular, but we'll break that down in a few minutes. But for midweek races, I think for a track like Darlington, this really worked well. I won't say midweek races all the time. Like, don't make it overkill. Just like how the Roval is special, I think midweek races can be established, and it can be more than once. Bless you. But
thank you.
I would much rather see it maybe 4, maybe 5 times most at the max, and put it on a track like Darlington, which just has that on-the-edge style of driving, or a short track like Bristol or Martinsville. That's going to be the next Wednesday night race at Martinsville. Or actually, no, I think it's Charlotte. It's going to be Charlotte and then Martinsville. But, just tracks that you can tell are going to provide a good, it's somewhat brief race, but entertaining show on a Wednesday night. I mean, it's basically short track Saturday night without the Saturday portion. It's something that the fans love. So I think it'd be great to see NASCAR incorporate more of that, but not go overkill on it. Let's move on to the Xfinity race while we're still talking about it. So the Toyota 200 for Darlington, it was supposed to happen on Tuesday night, but rain in the area forced it to Thursday afternoon, and it produced one of the best battles at Darlington we've seen in a long time at the finish. Chase Briscoe holding off Kyle Busch for the victory. Chase Briscoe, it's his second win of the season, 4th win of his Xfinity Series career, and he held off the winningest driver in the Xfinity Series to do it. I mean, can't get much better than that, but this victory was especially important and very emotional for Chase Briscoe. For those who are unaware of the events of the last couple of days, Chase found out on Tuesday that he and his wife, Marissa, previously they had been expecting a baby girl to be born around the holiday season in December. Unfortunately, on Tuesday, they found out that the baby did not have a heartbeat, and that basically they had suffered a miscarriage. So for Chase Briscoe to win Thursday, I mean, you could tell just how important it was. Just not even to get the victory, but to just be driving. And you could tell it was important. I was fortunate enough to tune into the post-race press conferences via Zoom, and Briscoe just reiterated how special it was to win. I mean, the win was, and his crew chief Richard Boswell as well. I mean, they stated the win was for Chase, for all he'd been through, and for his wife, and for their unborn child, their stillborn baby girl. So I'll start with Justin again on this. I mean, considering all that Chase Briscoe has been through the last couple days, I mean, it's unimaginable pain. Like, I know that none of us could imagine the pain of what he and his family have been through. So for him to get the win and to beat Kyle Busch to win it in the way he did, just balls to the wall, hanging it all out there on the last lap at Darlington. It's like Hollywood can't write a better script.
I mean, he beat the one driver in the garage who probably has had this similar experience to him.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously, Kyle Busch and Samantha Busch during in the 2018 in championship week, and all that, what happened there. But just what a great feel-good victory we had, and just so you could tell, he wore that race on his sleeve, and just the and shout out to Regan Smith for not putting the microphone straight to his face during the victory celebration, and basically, but it was just a feel-good victory. That I can't think of a better feel-good victory we've had in probably a decade. This is probably one of the best as we've had in quite some time. But I mean, and obviously our thoughts and prayers are with Briscoe and his wife, Ave, too. But that was just such an amazing final lap. And he held off probably one of the best guys as to ever get inside a Cup car, and the best to ever get in an Xfinity car. That's not something that comes easy. That's not something that happens often. Kyle Busch rarely gets beat in the Xfinity series. Although he's been beaten twice this season, he doesn't get beat that often. And so for Briscoe to just go out there in those final two laps and hold off Kyle Busch, you just can't ask for a better result for not only Briscoe, coming off of such a tragic event, but just NASCAR Xfinity Series as a whole, as well.
Absolutely, Hal Estep. It's a big victory for Chase Briscoe, and honestly, I mean, there are some victories that you watch where it just makes the viewer or a race fan feel real good about it. And it doesn't even matter if they're a big fan of the driver. You watch that and it's like, man, that's really, really great. What are the thoughts surrounding Chase Briscoe's win and how he was able to hold off Kyle Busch at the end?
We've reiterated many times how in NASCAR the right driver wins at the right time, and this is one of the greatest cases of that, where Chase Briscoe, watching that last lap, all I could think was he is driving the wheels off that thing, and I just thought, I know how great Kyle Busch is. I know he's probably the best driver going right now. I don't think there is a chance he beats him, because Chase Briscoe isn't just driving for himself. He's driving for something bigger than just him. I didn't think – and credit to Kyle Busch as well, because he drove the wheels off that thing too. Those two had one of the best last lap battles I've seen in recent memory. And quite frankly, it's perfect that Chase Briscoe went and got the win. And even if he didn't, we would have commended him, because it takes a lot of heart to get in the car after that. And really just tossing prayers to his family, because it's an unspeakable tragedy.
Yeah. Again, our sincere condolences and our prayers for Chase Briscoe and his family for what they've gone through. And Justin touched on it. Kyle Busch and his wife Samantha, they've been through this situation before with the miscarriage of their child in 2018. So it's a tough situation, and with a lot of pain that I can't even imagine what they would be going through. I know Chase had mentioned that Kyle and particularly his wife Samantha, they had reached out to Briscoe and his wife Marissa on the situation. They'd been providing all the help that they could, basically offering any help that they needed, along with a majority of the NASCAR garage, which is really, really nice to see. And it's I had a thought going and I just lost it. I'm sorry about that, but it's definitely a big win for Chase especially at the right time. And we mentioned drivers win. It seems like the right guys win at the right time. Yeah, I mean, you can look at basically a lot of the 2001 season when Steve Park won the first Cup race after Dale Earnhardt's tragic death at Daytona. Kevin Harvick winning at Atlanta, mirroring Dale Earnhardt's victory at Atlanta the year prior over Bobby Labonte. Dale Jr. winning the first Cup race at Daytona after his father's death just 5 months before. Denny Hamlin winning Daytona last year, the first 500 after his team owner and great friend J.D. Gibbs' death. Jimmy Johnson winning in Atlanta 2004 after the Hendrick Motorsports plane crash in Bald Mountain that killed 10 of the team's staff, and including Rick Hendrick's son and brother involved in that accident. It's just one of those really big feel-good moments, and it's something that a lot of people can get behind. And hats off to Kyle Busch for, he put a good show to him. And I'm sure there was a time where Kyle could have just driven it in there as hard as he could, but he raced him aggressively but cleanly at the same time. Good, hard, clean racing, and I think that's the best type of finish that we could ask for.
I mean, there's no way he would have. I mean, could you imagine the reaction of the NASCAR fan base had Kyle done that 2 days in a row?
NASCAR Twitter would burn to the ground.
Both chases is not only taking off NASCAR's most popular driver, but the guy who's gone through a similar situation to what you have. NASCAR Twitter would have never forgiven Kyle Busch. And they're already pretty mad at Kyle Busch. That would have pretty much made Kyle Busch irredeemable. But you also got to give him credit for not letting Chase Briscoe just have the victory. Kyle Busch made him earn it. It honestly, there was no way Kyle Busch was backing down to let Chase Briscoe get the victory. He wanted it badly. Because keep in mind, he's got 96 wins. And this was his second race out of 5 this year in the Xfinity Series. Had he won, that would have put him at 97 and still on pace to retire from the Xfinity Series for good at 100. He's been on record saying that 100 is his mark, that he would retire after that from the Xfinity Series. So 2022, it won't happen this year. So 2021 is the year that Kyle Busch maybe retires from the Xfinity Series. So great win for Chase. Feel sorry for the rest of the Xfinity guys who are coming up the pipeline in 2021 because they're going to have to deal with Kyle Busch still.
Yeah. Looking at some other top finishers from yesterday's event at Darlington, Justin Allgaier finished third. It's his first top 5 of the season. Still looking for that first win of the year. He's actually led the second most laps of the season, if you can believe it, and has the most stage wins in terms of laps led, that category. He only trails Chase Briscoe. But Allgaier, this is his first top 5 of the season. Austin Cindric in 4th. Noah Gragson, the pole sitter, led the most laps on the day. He gets a top 5 finish. It got real interesting near the end where he almost wrecked some of his teammates that were running in the top 5. So that was interesting. We'll say that much.
That would have been an interesting conversation at the Hendrick headquarters or the Zoom meeting, whatever.
Yep. But overall, we've gone through all 3 events. So now let's get back to the big main event as to why everyone got so hyped up about everything happening. Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch. For those who don't know what happened in the incident, Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch were running up near the front. Denny Hamlin had just gotten the lead, and Chase Elliott had the better run off the corner, and Kyle saw a place in line. Then he turned right. Depending on whose allegiance or who you support, you're going to have different opinions. If you're a Chase Elliott fan, you're going to say that Kyle Busch did it on purpose. And if you're a Kyle Busch fan, you'll say that Kyle was just trying to get back in line, and he ended up turning Chase Elliott. Now, I tend to side more with on the opinion that Kyle Busch was just trying to get back in line. But the thing with Kyle Busch is that he completely misjudged turning right. I mean, he did it way too soon. Dave Moody on the radio broadcast for MRN was saying that Kyle didn't misjudge it by an inch and a half. It was more like a foot or a foot and a half. So, I mean, obviously a bad miscalculation by Busch. And he even, to his credit, he fessed up to it in the post-race. He said, I mean, it was a miscalculation. I mean, I don't hold anything against those guys, referring to Chase Elliott's team. And when he was asked the question in the post-race Zoom conference, how do you try to reason with Chase Elliott's team or the fans, or do you reason with them at all? He's like, you don't. You just don't. They're going to have their opinion, and you got to deal with it. So Kyle obviously knows he'll have to deal with whatever Chase Elliott and if there's any potential retaliation. I'll start with Hal on this because there are some questions I want to talk about. There are some extreme takes from fans as to why Kyle Busch did what he did and whether or not it was intentional. Are fans overreacting to this?
Is the sky blue? Yes, of course they're reacting to it. I mean, we're talking about NASCAR fans. They overreact to many, many things, this being one of them. The way I see it, the way I saw the incident is the moment I saw it, I just went, well, that doesn't look so good. And I thought just for a second, that didn't look that either, because I'm going, he was definitely trying to get back in line. It's exactly what it looked like. So, I mean, I'm kind of going, what ill intent would there even be? That was his old crew back in 2007, his old crew chief. That'd be a weird move to make, just go wreck his driver. So I don't see how it would be intentional. And of course the fans will overreact because not only is it Chase Elliott, it's Kyle Busch, the most polarizing guy wrecking the most popular driver. This is, of course they're going to overreact. I mean, that's just the nature of the incident.
Yeah. Justin, over to you.
I'll say this. Thank goodness there were no fans at this race. I think we can all unanimously agree Kyle Busch was going to need a police escort or Alan Darlington had there been in fans. Hopefully this time we don't need the FBI involved with every single race like a certain incident back at Richmond in 2008. But this just reminds me of 2008 at the Richmond race is Kyle Busch as Rex Dale Earnhardt Jr. Now Kyle Busch was definitely not as popular at the time, and he basically dumped the golden boy of NASCAR. But oh boy, this is gonna get good.
Go ahead.
This is exactly what NASCAR needed. This is exactly what NASCAR needed. You can't put it any other way. There were no fisticuffs. There were so far, no retaliation. And let's kind of hope it stays that way. Unless Chase Elliott does what he did to Denny Hamlin at Phoenix a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a good thing for NASCAR. And when I saw that was the instant moment where I said, yeah, we're back.
Yep. Fans, some are overreacting to it, but at the same time, I do want to talk about just how important this could be for the sport in the long run. And I put up a point, like, just imagine if there were fans there. You realize that, I forgot to mention this, but Chase Elliott, after he got wrecked by Busch on the front stretch, I mean, he didn't even waste any time climbing out of the car. He got out. You could tell he was livid. And he didn't really approach the racing surface, which is good because he would have broken that rule that happened in the aftermath of the Stewart and Kevin Ward incident. But, he was just standing there on the apron, and he gives him the number one salute. So Yeah, the quote unquote #1 salute. Our viewers and listeners can figure that out for themselves, what that really means. So, if fans had seen that, if the stands were packed, they would have just lost it when Chase Elliott did that to Kyle Busch as Busch is coming by. They would have been like, yeah! And they would have been chanting some obscenities at Kyle Busch. And I bet you if there weren't any social distancing guidelines, there was going to be a fight. There would have been a fight. And I know we bring up the point that Chase Elliott just doesn't seem like the kind of person to really go to fisticuffs with someone. That's what I thought about Jeff Gordon a while back. And then Clint Boyer happened, and then Brad Keselowski happened. So there was that incident with Jeff Burton at Texas in 2010 too. Like Gordon, he didn't even give Burton a chance to explain. He just started shoving him and punching him. It was one of the funniest things.
It's not the Chase Elliott you got to worry about. Oh, it's that team. Keep in mind, that team has gone to war. Or this is Jeff Gordon's team. And
That's
we're
true.
talking about they went insane on Brad Keselowski's crew back in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just lining up at the 18th pit box ready to go. Oh, if anything broke out, they were ready to go. NASCAR had to call security down over there. I was listening to the free radio scans that they had over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and they just said, and I need security down to the 18 pit cell. Oh, trust me, that the 9 team is one of the last teams you want to have in the fist fight. The only teams I would take over them are the 22 and the 2. So those are the only 2 teams I would not mess with in the fight. But
So basically 2 of Penske's crew.
Basically Penske Racing. Just don't mess with them. But this was just great. This was honestly just great. And this is what you need. This is exactly what you need in it for NASCAR. And it doesn't, and the good news is it doesn't affect Chase Elliott points wise all that much. I believe right now Chase is actually 5th in the standings. He's the first guy who's right now doesn't have a winner. He doesn't have a win, but he's the first guy not to have a win, so he's good on points. But Kyle Busch in 13th. There might be a little trouble there. Or 13th in the standings. So if Chase Elliott really wanted to do something, he really could help hurt Kyle Busch.
I mean, he could. It's still kind of early in the season, though. So
it is early.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to bring up another point, but I noticed that when Chase Elliott, he actually didn't get fined by NASCAR, surprisingly, for that gesture for the #1 bird salute to Kyle Busch. He didn't
He's
get fined.
He's going to be getting a ton of money for it.
Yeah,
I mean, T-shirt sales.
Oh yeah, the T-shirt sales will be skyrocketing for sure for what Chase did. And at first, when I heard no fine for Chase Elliott, I thought that's a little surprising. I mean, it was in plain view of TV cameras, but there was a retweet that Jeff Gluck made in response to Bob Pockris breaking the news that Chase wasn't going to get fined. That actually makes a lot of sense because when Chase Elliott flipped off Kyle Busch, that image could resonate so much with NASCAR and trying to return to glory. It gives them a lot of publicity now, and they're going to be the only race that happens Memorial Day weekend. They're the only event really that's going on, unless you're counting UFC. Sorry, Hal. But let's be honest, UFC, they happen. They're there. But NASCAR, it's their biggest event, one of their biggest events that they have every season, the Coke 600. It's the only race they've got this year on Memorial Day weekend because the Monaco Grand Prix is canceled. The Indy 500's all the way in August now. You've got the Coke 600 at Charlotte. It's going to be the only race happening, and you're going into this event with the biggest hero that NASCAR has in Chase Elliott, the baby face, the one that everybody loves and just cherishes to no end, which is to the point of annoyance. And then you have the biggest heel, the villain, Kyle Busch. You have the villain wrecking the hero. Oh man, the fans are just so pumped about this. And yes, I did use wrestling terminology, which I knew Hal was going to love, don't you?
I
Yes, the
appreciate it.
applause. Exactly. So, man, this could be big for NASCAR. I'm so looking forward to what the Coke 600 is going to have in store now. It's going to happen this Sunday evening. So, moving on to the next topic, we're going to break away from NASCAR now, and we'll talk about Formula One. You know, the one that has the Monaco Grand Prix, except this year. I'm trying to find the news article for it. The Formula One teams recently approved a radical set of rule changes that are aimed at securing the future of the sport in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. This is according to a motorsport.com article by Jonathan Noble. Basically a new deal of sorts for F1 teams. A lot of proposals were voted on Friday, which was today. Multiple sources confirmed that teams have supported changes. The biggest ones to keep in mind are that the budget cap for Formula One teams and operations for 2021 will be cut from 175 million to 145 million beginning next season, and it will be steadily going down as the years go on to 140 million in 2022 and then 135 million the year after for 2023. There were other talks that teams were willing to go even lower if necessary. McLaren stated that they could go as low as 100 million. Whereas Ferrari, it was clear that they were not going to be happy with a budget cap any lower than 145 million for 2021. There were talks to bring it lower, but considering how Ferrari is a giant sport in Formula One, not giant sport, giant team. It's one of the Goliaths of F1. Considering that they're also looking at entering into IndyCar, if the budget cap had gone lower, I would think that considering how Ferrari was not happy with earlier proposals, they would have looked at IndyCar more seriously. And I know that they're still seriously considering it, but with the budget cap now, I think Ferrari can safely be satisfied with their time, with their continued future in Formula One. I guess I'll start with Hal on this. Are there any other thoughts as to the rule changes that Formula One passed and how these budget caps are going to affect the future of competition in F1?
I think it could help influence parity in F1, but then I started thinking more about it. I mean, Lewis Hamilton's just going to keep winning anyway, so I mean, budget cap is a kind of formality on that. However, thinking about how Ferrari was a little bit angry about the budget cap, it reminds me of what would happen if in the MLB you tried to implement a salary cap. The big market teams like the Yankees and Red Sox would say, why can't I spend my money? And I see that in Ferrari right now. So with Ferrari, I'm not surprised that they would be displeased to go anything below 145 million. However, all I could think about with this budget cap is, man, it's a lot more money you could be putting in IndyCar. Get a dynasty going in 2 series. That'd be interesting, but I'm not sure it'll happen. But with that, I think it definitely does help the teams throughout the coronavirus crisis. And in the future, maybe it'll promote parity. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe when Lewis Hamilton retires, I don't know.
Yeah, Justin, anything to add on?
Not really. We knew it was kind of going to be inevitable that this was going to be in place once they started talking about it, even with the influence of Ferrari and Mercedes in the sport. But this just makes sense. And you have to do it. You have to keep these teams afloat. You already have the rumors out there that 4 teams are going away, which would be absolutely detrimental to any progress F1 has made over the past 10 years. is to try and get new teams in. And obviously your most recent team, Haas F1, has not done well, and they're about to back out. So what's that say to new investors who are looking to get into the sport? You have to do this. You have to keep these teams contained. And again, there's not many people who are willing to throw $145 million around every single year, or plus all of the upfront costs to get into the sport. But if this will definitely help sustain the damage, I would say, to the rest of the, just the series. They got to keep doing everything in their power to keep these teams around.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how it's important for racing to get back underway. NASCAR, they're in that position where they could get back, where they are back underway. Whereas with Formula One, considering how they're more on a global scale, it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to get back underway. So definitely putting a budget cap its goal is to help the team save money and to try to keep going into the next season, which for that, hopefully it proves to be beneficial for the teams in that that they'll be able to stick around in the next racing season. And if it brings the teams closer together, then that's even better. But again, I don't know if parity is really what we'll be seeing out of Formula One, at least bringing the competition closer and tighter together for 2021. We've now reached the point where Hal is going to give us another update on the beloved, popular, the Floyd Money Mayweather Money Team update. Is there anything to know?
He might have more money to throw around eventually if he accepts Conor McGregor's fight. But other than that, that might give him more money to fund the team. That's an update, I guess. Not really. It's not a racing update in the slightest. There is no real update.
The Money Team Racing update. Again, nothing new. So, who knows? They might show up to Charlotte unannounced. Who knows? I don't.
Yeah, 600 miles. Oh, gosh.
600 miles. If only. Now we're going to move on to something that I've thought about doing for a while, but I'm going to start doing it. This will be a regular segment on the show beginning this week. It's called Sterling Spotlight. I want to spotlight a few guys who really impressed me this last week over the real racing action. I'll start with Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick, it's safe to say that in his first, that's 6 races now, in his first 6 races for RCR, he's already outperforming Daniel Hemrick at this point of the season last year. I mean, he ran really, really well at Phoenix and could have gotten a good run had he not blown a tire and crashed late in the going. There were even talks that he had a car that could even win that race. And he started at the back for Sunday's event at Darlington, and he worked his way into the top 10, not once, but twice after going to the back. He gets a top 10 finish for RCR. The 2-time reigning Xfinity Series champion is showing why he's in that Cup Series car, and again, why he continues to prove doubters like me initially, proving doubters wrong on why he deserves the ride.
And might I add, he's only 4 points out despite 2 DNFs this season, including the one at Phoenix. He's only 4 points out of the playoffs as of right now.
Yeah, already doing better than Daniel Hemrick in that ride last year. Not trying to take away from Hemrick, but, Reddick is doing really good, considering. I mean, he's doing better than Austin Dillon, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing better. He's by only 4 points. No, 5 points.
5 points. Got it. So, Tyler Reddick, there's the first spotlight. The second spotlight I want to put on John Hunter Nemechek. A lot of people were well, I don't want to say a lot of people, but they were surprised a little bit when John Hunter Nemechek was hired to drive for Front Row Motorsports in 2020. I'll admit I was a little surprised when I heard the news, but then I thought about it a little more and thought, you know what? John Hunter might actually do some pretty good stuff in that car. He got a top 10 finish for Front Row Motorsports at Darlington, one of the toughest tracks to drive. And it wasn't by luck either. He drove it up into the top 10. That's, I think, if I'm correct, not counting super speedway races at Daytona or Talladega, that is Front Row Motorsports' first top 10 in at least a few years.
It's first time since 2016, I believe, because 2016 was the Chris Buescher victory for Front Row
at Pocono in 2016. Yeah. So, yeah, John Hunter Nemechek to drive that car up into the top 10. I mean, hats off to him. Top 10 finish, well-deserved round of applause for that. My third spotlight, gonna kick it to an old veteran. Matt Kenseth made his return to NASCAR this past weekend. His first Cup Series start since the Homestead finale in 2018, and he got a top 10 on his return. How about that? Finished 10th in his first race for Chip Ganassi Racing. It goes to show Matt Kenseth, he actually scored 2 consecutive top 10 finishes in NASCAR Cup Series starts. It just took 527 days to get the second one. Ryan Newman, another spotlight I want to bring up. I mean, considering what he went through with his Daytona crash and having a bruised brain in the accident, to come back, his first race back behind the wheel of a NASCAR stock car in his Ford Mustang, he came back, got a top 15 finish in his first race, and he led a few laps on Wednesday night. So hats off to him for having an impressive week. A couple more guys I want to spotlight. Ty Dillon, just for one specific reason, for the Hump Day scheme. Just that by itself is a big one. The Hump Day scheme alone, and for leading laps on Hump Day in the Hump Day car. Another one I want to bring up, Chase Briscoe. We already talked about him, but to win in a big moment like that, considering everything he's gone through, it's pretty clear that it was a special win for Chase Briscoe on Thursday. Hats off for everything that he and his family have gone through, and our best well wishes to him, he and his family, as they work through this difficult time. And Justin, I see you added on a spotlight driver.
Yeah, Bubba Wallace. Last year, our average finish of around 26th place. This year, so far, 17.5 average finish, and just outside of the cut line, right behind and Tyler Reddick. So Chase, I mean, one of the big surprises this season, Bubba Wallace is in the conversation for the playoffs this early in the season.
Is it really?
He is right now 5 points out behind William Byron for the final cutoff spot. But that just goes to show how there's still some talent in that 43 car. Or hopefully the equipment at RCR is getting better to help with it.
Well, there's hoping. I mean, he's got the top 10 in Vegas. That's the only top 10 he has this year. But yeah, he is. He's just 2 spots behind William Byron for the last playoff spot. So, yeah, who knows what'll happen. And actually, one more spotlight now that I think about it. It has nothing to do with drivers, but I do want to spotlight Fox Sports and their coverage of the races this last week, and adhering to social distancing guidelines with everything going on. A lot of people were wondering, how are they going to make this work? But kudos to NASCAR and Fox and Fox Sports for their really just outstanding coverage that they provided. And by the way, the starting lineup intro that they had for the drivers, keep that forever and ever till the end of time. That was perfect. But I do want to share the screen on how they were conducting the interviews, which, given this time that we're living in, it's honestly a really convenient way to do it. If I can bring this up full. Yeah, this is how they interviewed Kevin Harvick after his win on Sunday. Obviously, they have a crew member holding out a microphone at about a 6-foot distance. They have a cameraman, and then they have their pit reporter, in this case Regan Smith, standing at a pretty safe distance away. So that's how they conducted all of their interviews this week with all the drivers that they interviewed. And for the most part, unless you were a driver that had just gotten out of the car on the front stretch, like Kevin Harvick or Chase Briscoe on Thursday, every driver had a mask on, which, considering the uncertainty of the times that we're living in this pandemic era, honestly, it was a really nice thing to see that drivers are taking this thing seriously and that they're taking the necessary precautions to ensure that they are doing their part in promoting safety and social distancing during this time, even with sports going on and races starting to get back underway. So we've gone through that. We've got some quick takes, some quick news that I want to bring up, starting with IndyCar will not hold races at Richmond or Toronto this year. That was the announcement made yesterday. And instead, they will be having their Road America event moved back from late June into July, and that will serve as a double header. Obviously, Richmond, this was supposed to be IndyCar's first race there since 2009. Unfortunately, that will have to wait another year. As for Toronto, it's been a staple on the schedule for IndyCar since the IRL Champ Car merger in 2007, 2008. But for Road America to get a doubleheader, I mean, it's one of the most popular circuits that IndyCar goes to. For Road America getting a doubleheader, that's the ticket. That's a pretty good gain, don't you think?
Not bad.
Yeah. Hal, anything to say about that?
I mean, Road America, who doesn't enjoy a good Road America race? A good road course to have on the schedule, doubleheader. I mean, sure, we are losing two good tracks, but Road America is one of the best.
Track in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, always a fan favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another, this is more like a bomb, a news bomb of sorts. Monaco, the Grand Prix of Monaco for Formula One. It was announced that for next year, the Monaco Grand Prix will not be held on the American Memorial Day weekend for 2021. This leaves open the possibility that some drivers can run Monaco and the Indy 500 next year. Except, how is this going to affect the month of May? That's the one question I have. But we'll save that discussion for another time. Monaco is not going to be on the same day as the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 next year. So, in a way, it might take away from the greatest day in motorsports, but how does this affect drivers who want to do both Monaco and Indy?
It gives them options. It gives them a few options heading into May. Now, obviously, the difference between doing the double in terms of Monaco and Indy is going to be a lot tougher, I would even argue, than doing the 600 and the 500 on the same day. Because keep in mind, you're not doing in just as 2 weeks. And you're not just qualifying on the Sunday and then traveling back to Charlotte for a race and then coming back to Indy to focus on that race up until the Coca-Cola 600. No. Oh, you have to go international. You're flying across the sea if you want to do this. is even without Monaco being on the same week, you still are flying international unless F1 is deciding, you know what, we're taking the month of May off, except for maybe the final week in May, and they're in Detroit for IndyCar. You're not getting in the best as for you're not getting a good amount of logistics for this race. Again, unless F1's taking off the entire month of May leading up to the Indy 500 or the weeks in Indy, I just still don't see a driver being able to do the Indy Monaco combo. Now that doesn't mean that drivers won't try to do something like Monaco Coca-Cola 600. I think that may be a little more reasonable logistically to do, but me seeing a guy go from Indy to F1 and in terms of Indy and Monaco, I just can't see it yet.
Yeah, I do want to bring up that the date for the 2021 Monaco Grand Prix, it's no longer on Memorial Day weekend. It's the week before, May 23rd, 2021, whereas the Indy 500 will remain on Memorial Day weekend on May 30th.
And the Sunday is the last chance qualifying day. That Sunday before is the last chance qualifying day. So, you would have, and I believe the qualifying's on Saturday, if I'm correct. Saturday for most of the spots, right?
They change a lot of the format consistently. It seems like every few years, but if I remember correctly, they had pole day on the Saturday before the Sunday before the 500, they had bump day. The day before that was pole day. So
you would have to qualify on Saturday and then take a flight all the way over to Monaco, or Italy, depending on where airports are. I'm not that well versed in Italian geography or that area, so to speak. But you would have to take what is probably a 16-hour flight from Indianapolis and probably stop in New York along the way, from Indianapolis to New York, all the way over to Italy, and take a drive or a helicopter or something to Monaco in the span of 24 hours. That's not going to be easy to do.
And in fact, it might even be shorter, considering how, you think about time zones with Monaco, just in relative to the central United States where we all live. The Monaco Grand Prix, it typically starts 6, 7 a.m. here in the central United States. Whereas in Monaco, it's probably maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon when they started there. So, obviously you also have to keep in mind the time jump that would happen and any jet lag that could happen as well. So I don't know. Hal, is there anything you want to add on about drivers trying to do both Monaco and Indy, if it's feasible or even possible to do?
Good luck. I mean, if you want to try it, good luck. I don't think it's feasible. I think that is a disaster waiting to have physically a toll on your body from, you just take a normal flight and you kind of get off the plane, you're going, my legs are asleep. A 16-hour flight, your legs are asleep, and I'm not sure how they're going to wake up for a race in a couple hours, but I don't think it's going to be very good for you. I just think it's a bad idea to try to rush through and go to the Indy 500.
Kind of reminds me of an old stand-up routine that I remember watching from Lewis Black when he was describing his travels that he had gone to overseas and how he went to New Zealand one time. And he said it was a 22-hour flight from New York to New Zealand nonstop. And how he was telling the audience, you don't want to be on a plane longer than 8 or 9 hours. A 22-hour flight is like an out-of-control stress test So if you're in New York and you have the opportunity to go to New Zealand, don't. So it's just it reminds me so much of that, especially with a long flight and having to deal with everything that goes with a long flight and fatigue that would result from a long flight. You don't want to be on a plane for very long. I can imagine how that would be if you're trying to knock out both Indy and Monaco and you want to try to get a good starting position for both events. I know Monaco, if you start at the back, you're basically stuck there because Monaco, it's impossible to pass. For Indy, you can start at the back and make your way to the front, but at the same time, you got to qualify for the race because no spots are guaranteed. Sorry, owners that tried it last year, Michael Andretti, even Roger Penske, even journalists like Robin Miller was in favor of this. This was before Fernando Alonso failed to qualify for the 500 last year. So after the Alonso thing, bump day is pretty much a lock for at least a few years now. But yeah, you got to qualify for the 500. If you don't set a time, you're not in the show. So yeah,
and you can't run on bump day. You can't and drive on bump day because I did the math here. It's 10 hours and 20 minutes from New York to Rome. It's another 2 hours from New York to Indy. The only way I see this being possible, and this is a very long shot, considering the fact that we are in a pandemic and nobody's going to have money to invest, is if Ferrari decided to dip their toes into the good old IndyCar market. That's the only way I see it. And they would have to have pretty much this thing down to a science. It's now, and even then, you're going to have to get IndyCar and F1 to accommodate for it. And it's not like NASCAR, where NASCAR you can say, oh, you missed the driver's meeting, you're starting the back. No, IndyCar and F1, you can't start at the back. You can't work your way up. I mean, I'm not saying and you can't win in Indy from the 33rd spot. That is feasible.
Yeah. Scott Goodyear almost did it in 92.
That was the example I was about to bring up. But F1, you cannot start or 22nd. The highest you're going to get is 12th on the grid. And at any racetrack. At Monaco, you're probably going to finish 16th unless Haas F1 wrecks everybody out going into that one corner. And even then, you're begging for a Haas F1 to qualify up front to knock out enough cars to get to the front of the pack. So I just don't see how this is possible. And as a racing fan, gosh dang it, there goes for a morning part of the Memorial Day weekend, and because that is one of my favorite days of the year, or sunrise to sunset, and beyond that, it's racing.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate. I'm sorry. You mentioned you were kind of banking on Haas F1 taking a few guys, like just causing an accident. I mean, I don't know if it's so much Haas F1 as much as it is considering their reputations. If you had Maldonado and Roman Grosjean on the track. I mean, Grosjean still drives for Haas, but Maldonado, he just had the reputation of being a crasher, which is unfortunate because he had a lot of talent. I mean, he had a lot of speed, but he, for the life of him, could not stop getting into crashes and just racking up a lot of penalties too. We've gone on quite a bit about Monaco. Let's talk about some races that are coming up, particularly the Truck Series race. The Truck Series, before the pandemic, their grid was capped at 32 entries per race, or 32 trucks per race. You could have more people on the entry list, but there would only be 32 allowed in. Anyone who was slower than 32nd or whatever time would be allowed, considering the owner points from the previous year. Anyone 33rd or 37th or however many trucks were entered would fail to qualify. They would not be able to start. But considering the new rules that were passed with Xfinity Series and the Truck Series, now expanding their grids to 40 vehicles per race. We have 47 trucks entered for this race at Charlotte. That's going to be happening on Tuesday night. 47 trucks for this race. I can't remember the last time we had a truck series grid this full.
Daytona had 47 as well.
Yeah. And there's going to be 40 trucks starting. Just keep that in mind. 40. I'm doing some research trying to find the last time we had a truck series grid that high. There were 40 trucks that started the season finale of the inaugural truck series season in 1995 at Phoenix International Raceway. There were 40 trucks that started that race. I think that might have been that was the first time they had 40 trucks. Now that I think about it, their first few races that they had in Las Vegas in the mid 90s, they had 40 trucks for Vegas in 96, 40 for Loudon in 97, and 40 for Vegas in 97 as well. So they didn't really have any capped entries, or they didn't cap the grid at a certain limit of trucks. They didn't start doing that until it looks like 1999 is the first year that they started limiting how many trucks could be in a race. But I mean, 40 trucks. It'll be the first time it's happened since 1998. It shows that teams are still interested in running. I mean, and especially in trucks too. I think more entries. I'll start with Hal on this. More entries for the trucks. It's something that they kind of need right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I think more trucks on the track is always good to see, as long as they can stay up to speed. That's one thing I'm looking for in the truck race. Are the guys in the back up to speed? Because if not, then you're kind of going, oh boy, we got a problem on our hands back, and you're gonna have to park some cars because they just aren't fast enough, and we're good.
Yep. Justin, your take on it?
It's definitely going to be interesting, because here's the deal. Oh, you have 47 trucks, and normally you would think, oh, there's a couple of back markers. They're not going to matter, or in terms of the guys who didn't make the race. Well, here's how it was set up. There were 27 drivers who made it in on 2019 owners points. So 27 trucks made it through on that. Then you had 13 guys who made it on 2020 owners points. You would think that would cover most of the big names. Most of the guys in the big names would be safe. And not exactly here, because there are two drivers that missed out on the field because of this. Eric Jones and Parker Kligerman. Two guys who are running, and not just it's in the – I mean, obviously Eric Jones, Cup Series driver, are missing the field based on owners points. That's a little crazy. But you also have Parker Kligerman, who was also a part of the iRacing Pro Invitational Series for weeks. He's missing this race because he doesn't have enough owner points.
Yeah.
That's a brand new team.
Well,
so
is it though? I mean, it's Henderson.
I think it's new.
Henderson Motorsports, they've been around for a few years. I
think it's a newer truck, though. I think it's a newer truck in terms of owners points. I think they were registered under a different car number, if I recall correctly.
75. I know Kligerman drove it a couple years ago. I think he took it to he even won a race at Talladega in that truck.
It's weird that he's not going to be involved in this race.
I mean, I guess there's really no way to know about it until they actually come out with the grid for it. But
no, the grid's out. The grid's out. He's not making the race. It's because of the owners points.
Hmm.
But The races. The lineup's already been set, at pretty much based on the owners' points. That's at least what I've been reading into it. Because as basically the 40-car entry list, it has every single driver and then entries excluded by points on the entry list. So Tim Vines, Eric Jones, Norm Benning, Trey Hutchins III, Bryant and Barnhill, Dawson Cram, and Parker Kligerman. Those will be the guys who will miss the race because there are too many guys in. But you could definitely make an argument that, hey, maybe they should qualify for the race. But you also got to keep in mind, there's no way you're going to be able to do that for a trucks race. You got to get these events in. And yeah, it sucks that 7 cars are going to be left off the grid, but I don't think there's any other way you can really do it and keep these guys safe. It's going to suck that we're going to have a bunch of slow cars on the racetrack. Obviously, Eric Jones would be a top 10 driver, I would assume, and Parker Kligerman would be at least top 20. But it'll definitely be interesting and to see how the extra 8 cars are going to affect the race.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share the screen because I found the owner points for the truck series last year. Justin, you did bring up a good point about Henderson Motorsports is the team that Kligerman's driven for a couple years now, at least. They were 41st in the Owners' Championship, so they probably wouldn't make it. And as for who am I thinking of? As for Eric Jones, he's supposed to drive for Waters Motorsports, but I don't really see Waters on here unless it's with the 5 of DGR Crossley. And even then, I feel like that car, well, the thing is that car I think got renumbered, or maybe this is what I'm thinking of, the 15, because that's what Tanner Gray drives right now, the 15 truck. If we're looking at just the top 27, this is the cutoff. Kyle Busch Motorsports 46. That is the last truck in, simply on owner points, if that's how they're going to set the lineup for this event. And you look at the lineup here, you've got obviously 47 entries. You have there's Tim Veens. He probably won't make it in there. Rafael Lassard will be locked in. Eric Jones in the 5 probably will not, simply because of the owner points situation. I'm just looking for other people that could be in trouble. Parker Kligerman, I don't see him getting in there. So yeah, there are going to be several drivers left out because of owner points, if that's how the grid is going to be set for the truck race on Tuesday night. In the meantime, while we that's according to jski. Okay, this is from jski.com that I look up. Tim Veens, Eric Jones, Norm Benning, Trey Hutchins, Bryant Barnhill, Dawson Cram, and Parker Kligerman are excluded based on points. So there's that. We've knocked out all the other news items. Basically talked about how the first few races went. So now we're going to move on to the upcoming races that are happening, and we're going to make some picks for it. So, gentlemen, it is Coke 600 weekend at Charlotte. It's not exactly the greatest day in motorsports on Sunday because there's only one race happening, but in this time, we might as well celebrate what we've got. So let's go ahead and make some picks, shall we?
Let's do it.
So let's go ahead and look at the entry list, starting with the Coca-Cola 600 that is scheduled for Sunday, May the 24th. We'll have a look at it now, and I'll pull it up on here. Don't worry. This is going to be the only race that actually has qualifying. They will do it early Sunday before the race starts. So here we've got the entry list pulled up. It'll be 4 stages, 100 laps each. They will do their halftime salute to the troops as well with a moment of silence. So, 40 cars on the entry list. Nobody appears to have withdrawn, so it looks like everyone will be in the show. We will start our picks for tonight with Hal Estep. Hal, who in your mind is going to win the Coca-Cola 600?
Ooh, boy, this is always a fun one to pick. In history, Hendrick Motorsports has dominated at Charlotte during the Coke 600. And after watching Jimmy Johnson on Sunday, I just got to think, if he just keeps it clean, he's going to have a shot to win it. If he just keeps it clean. I think he'll keep it clean this time at a track he's very familiar with and win the Coke 600.
All right. Hal takes Jimmy Johnson to win the Coke 600. It would be his – I'm trying to think how many wins that would be. He won 3 Coke 600s in a row from 03 to 05. And he won the event again in 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
2014.
2014. I think he won it in 2012, too. No. That was Casey Kane that I'm thinking of.
Yep.
Yeah, 2014. That's when Jimmy Johnson won it again. He's won the 600 before, so yeah, pretty good pick, I would say. Jimmy Johnson, that's Hal Estep's pick for the Coke 600. Justin, your pick on the 600 miles of endurance that is at Charlotte.
I mean, basically, the 2 guys who I kind of thought were going to win the 600 before we got back going won at Darlington, and I don't see them winning this week. So I'm looking for other drivers. I think of Stuart Haas. Anybody behind Harvick, they're not going to have too well of a time. I think of Hendrick. I don't think Chase Elliott's going to win immediately, and I just can't see anybody else except for maybe Bowman being up towards the front, and with Johnson having a solid day. And then I look at Penske. I don't think Joey Logano gets his third, but I am going to go with if Brad Keselowski in the final race for Miller Lite, this is their one race this season as a primary sponsor, Brad Keselowski finally gets his win this season, and it has been long overdue. Well, give me the 2 going to victory lane on Sunday.
All right. Brad Keselowski sending out Miller Lite in style, I guess. That's one way to put it. For my pick, I'm not going to take very long on this. I'm just going to go with someone who I have a gut feeling is he's been pretty quiet to start this season, but I don't think he's going to stay quiet for long. He's a 2-time winner of the 600, and if you think back to his success at this track, he's the driver that historically, when you look back, he is the driver that has led the most miles ever in this race. I am talking about stage winner and race winner MTJ, Martin Truex Jr. I've got a good feeling about him. He led 392 laps in this race in 2016. Just absolutely put on a clinic. I feel like even though he hasn't gotten a whole lot of time to work with James Small, I think this race could mark a time where they finally get things clicking. And he may not have the most dominant car, but I feel like he'll have a shot at the end, and he'll be there to pounce to get that win for the number 19 team. So again, our picks, Hal Estep takes Jimmy Johnson, Justin Palmer with Brad Keselowski, and I'm going with Martin Truex Jr. Those are our picks for the Coca-Cola 600. Now, let's move on to the next race, which is going to be the Alsco 300 for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. That will be the following night on Monday, May the 25th, also at Charlotte. In fact, all of these races are going to be at Charlotte, I should mention. Let me get the entry list pulled up. Here we go. So there are 37 drivers on the entry list for Monday night's event. 300 miles at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We'll start again with Hal Estep.
All right. I think this race is just going to be weird. I don't know why. I just have a feeling it's going to be weird, and weird races tend to get won by Brandon Jones. So I'm just going to go with Brandon Jones.
I picked Brandon Jones to win Darlington, and let's just say he was nowhere. Justin, your pick.
I'm going to go with a different Toyota guy. He's had 2 second place finishes. There is no way Kyle Busch goes 3 races in the Xfinity Series this season without getting a win. And it is time Kyle Busch gets the win in the 54.
I feel like I want to pick Kyle Busch just because, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to just be like, I'm just bandwagoning on this and picking Kyle. I don't feel like the Chevys really have much of a chance. I'm debating between 2 guys right now as to who I think has a shot at winning. It's a tough decision because I think Harrison Burton, he's had a great start to the season. He was kind of anonymous on yesterday during the Xfinity race. And with just all of the momentum that this guy has, I got a feeling Chase Briscoe is going to go 2 in a row. I mean, he is riding that hot streak right now. I mean, 2 wins in the first 5 races. 5 races. He's a championship favorite. I think we all had him on a short list for championship contenders this season. So I'm going to say, why not? Let's pick Chase Briscoe to go 2 in a row and get win number 3 on 2020. So again, our picks, Hal takes Brandon Jones. Justin is going with Kyle Busch. And I am going with Chase Briscoe. Justin, you're taking the easy route. I'm sorry, just got to say that.
I mean, shout out to Hal for not picking Kyle Busch because otherwise that would have put me in the hot seat.
I don't like getting picks right. I think we know that by now.
Let's move on to the next scheduled race that's supposed to happen, the North Carolina Education Lottery 200 for NGROTS, the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series. Still working on trying to nail that name without any hiccups. Although I think
we're going to add like 2 more words to that by the end of next year. Or just watch.
So we have 47 trucks on the entry list, although there are 7 that are going to be cut out because of the owner points. Hal, we'll start with you. This is the first truck race back since the hiatus that NASCAR went on. They've run 2 races this season. Trying to remember, Grant Enfinger won the first event. Second event was won by, I feel silly for not remembering this. Let's just look at the standings, shall we?
It's been forever.
It's been a hot minute. Yeah, Grant Enfinger won the first race. The second race, Kyle Busch won the second. Of course
he did.
Yeah, no.
That's right. We made picks on it, and we all picked Kyle Busch. So let's see. Kyle is in this race.
There he is.
Kyle versus the field.
Yeah, it is Kyle versus the field again. Hal, your pick.
I mean, it's Kyle Busch. It's got to be Kyle Busch.
Okay. Justin, your pick.
I can't go against him. I'm in a truck race. It's Kyle Busch.
All right. Okay. You know what? Since none of you were going to do it, I'm going to pick someone else. I'm going to pick Brett Moffitt on a return from 2 broken legs. He's going to do really, really well in this race. He'll have a fire lit underneath him, and he'll be doing well. He'll be leading of the truck regulars because Kyle Busch is just going to blow everyone out. So
hang on. I'm actually going to retract my pick here. I'm actually going to retract my Kyle Busch pick and go out on a limb. Bump and run, Chase Elliott gets his revenge.
Wait a minute. Oh, Chase Elliott's in
$50,000. And by the way, Kevin Harvick, that's $50,000 if Chase Elliott beats Kyle Busch.
Just a quick question, though. Does anyone really even remember the bounty that was brought up?
Yes. Just as much as I remember Ruck's antics at the beginning of the season.
Oh, yeah, Angela Ruck and
her
husband's Twitter account, too.
Would the bounty be void due to him wrecking Kyle Busch, technically?
It's a bump and run. Doesn't have to wreck him.
But if he wrecks,
But
then
if
it
he
kind of
does,
nullifies
If he
it.
wrecks,
if Kyle wrecks, then that bounty is void.
Ooh, we're getting into
Ooh.
You
legal
realize that
technicalities.
this is a very, very slippery slope that could happen if Chase puts the bumper to him and Kyle slides up the track. Even if it's just a bump and run, Kyle could just be like, "Oh, I'm not going to win." Turns right, hard in the wall, wrecks. So
would Kyle Busch
Could you
really do
imagine?
that? Would Kyle Busch really do that, though?
I don't know. Maybe.
Hey.
Never know. I mean, he turned Chase at Darlington.
He
Was it
knows he
intentional?
has one coming. He'll take the punch and move on, I feel. He already took one from Joey Logano, so.
Oh, quite literally. Okay, so remind me again. Hal, your pick was Kyle Busch. Justin, you decided to change your pick to Chase Elliott. I feel like my philosophy I'm taking is we're either all on Kyle Busch or we're all picking somebody different. Like we're all going to pick one driver. So yeah, I'm just going to stick with Brett Moffitt then.
I feel like
Kyle, I mean, I know Kyle's going to have the fastest truck, but what if something goes wrong? Like, what if a wheel falls off for all we know? Something might happen, mechanical failure. Who knows what will happen? Brett Moffitt, it honestly, in all seriousness, though, it really would be a feel-good story considering how he broke both his legs in a dirt bike accident back in March. And incredibly, he didn't miss a single race because of this time we're living in, this year, this not normal year, this 2020. This 2020, 2020 is all by itself on its own island. So Brett Moffitt, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Busch, those are our picks for Tuesday's event for the NASCAR Truck Series at Charlotte. That will be happening on Tuesday night. One more race that I want to pick that doesn't have an entry list put out yet, but it's basically the Cup Series guys from Sunday for Wednesday night. That will be the Alsco Uniforms 500K at Charlotte. It's 208 laps that the Cup Series will be running. Just based on our picks that we have, we already have our picks for Sunday, but Hal, we'll start with you. Who is going to be prevailing on Wednesday night?
This is a much different race. It's not a 600-miler. It's a midweek race. Things are going to change, which means that Jimmy's going to have a really bad day because it's a more normal race. I'm going to have to go with Martin Truex Jr. on Wednesday. He's got 3 wins at Charlotte, and, I mean, he's due this year.
All right, Justin, your pick.
Yeah, Martin Truex Jr. was going to be my pick, but since I know every single time Hal makes a pick, he's going to be wrong. Except for when it comes to Kyle Busch. I got to go with someone different. And I think I have to go with Eric Jones. I think Eric Jones gets an early win this season. And I think he's shown a little bit of improvement. And I think he looked fast off the track. I mean, right out of Darlington. I just think Toyota keeps up the momentum going into Charlotte. I think they will get 1, if not 2 races this weekend. And so give me Eric Jones in a bit of an upset.
All right. For my pick, I'm trying to think who I picked Truex for the 600. I'm going to go with the guy who the guy who also dominated the Coke 600 a couple years ago and say Kyle Busch. I just feel like Kyle, with his hot start that he had over the first 2 races back for the Cup Series earlier this week, it'll be a matter of time before he gets to victory lane again. And I feel like Chase Elliott is going to be racing him hard for the win. If he's in that position, Chase might try to put the bumper to him, but it will get too high and he'll end up hitting the wall. Chase will, and Kyle will just drive away. So.
Now watch Denny Hamlin win on Wednesday because we went all Toyota across the board. except for Danny Hamlin and Christopher Bell and Daniel Suarez, but
Yeah.
it's going to be Danny Hamlin who's probably winning on Wednesday now that we say it.
Well, I mean, that wouldn't be so bad. I mean, we get to see this face again, right? With that, that's going to be the end of this show because we've clearly gone. Yeah, I'm highlighting this face way too much. Okay, I'll stop. It's just going to give us nightmares now. But in all seriousness, thank you all for watching and listening to this edition of Burnin' Rubber, the socially distanced edition. This will go out on YouTube as well as Anchor and Spotify in the coming really hours. The goal is to have it up tonight. Hal, Justin, any last words before we go off tonight?
It's been a great start. Hopefully we can keep up the momentum, and happy Memorial Day to everyone. Again, stay safe. Follow all your local government's guidelines, and we'll hopefully get back to the racetrack soon.
This is just a really selfish pitch. I hope we see some wrecks. I hope we see some rivalry wrecks.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean that's the closest we'll get to fights, considering we can't really have fights, otherwise drivers will get fined. But yeah, that'll do it for us. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. Feel free to party, but don't party too hard. I guess I'll say that much. So with that, that'll do it for our show. For my co-hosts and my panelists, Justin Palmer and Hal Eastep. On behalf of both of them and myself, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and be kind to one another. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Until the next time, I'm Sterling Siemens, signing off.